I've been racking my brain for the last 4 minutes trying to think of a way to properly set in the tone, the vibe that is going to be permeating throughout the majority of this review. And all I could really come up with is, for $199 after shipping, I actually would have rather bought SH Monster Arts. I think that pretty much sets it in.
ShinRobjira.
Today we're going to be talking about the Super7 Toho Ultimates Wave 1 Godzilla and Rose Form Biollante. To get this out of the way right now, the boxes that these two figures come in are rather beefy, but they do offer a rather nice presentation, both with the figures in them and with the figures outside of them. They're both going to have their names on the bottom of the boxes and such. But what makes it even better is that they both come with this really nice slip cover that is going to stop right at their names, so you'll be able to tell which box belongs to who. My only nitpick is that I wish the slip covers were somewhat exclusive to the monster that they were covering up. It would have been nice to see something different, but these are just boxes. We're not here to talk about boxes. Let's talk about figs. Starting off with Godzilla. Yeah, let's take a look at him from far away. Yes, this man is very glossy and it comes off rather cheap looking. Now I know Super7 has built their careers off of making retro-styled figures. That's their whole shtick. All of their Ultimates have come off like a release that you probably would have picked up when you were 8 years old. And I'm a fan of the whole retro thing, but goddamn! $85 for a figure that looks cheaper than the $25 NECA Godzilla 1994 figure. Yeah, somehow this guy is glossier than the aforementioned figure, and yeah. Anyway, let's take a look at the eyes. The eyes are decent. The little white circles are a little crookedly applied and kind of making Godzilla look a little wall-eyed, but I think that's the least of our problems here. But still, $85. The teeth kind of look like Godzilla is gargling scrambled eggs, and I mean, I guess for a closed mouth on a Godzilla figure, this is alright. Not too bad, not too bad. Now I just can't stop thinking about scrambled eggs. Dorsal fin-wise, they start not exactly at the top of Godzilla's head, but they follow through from the neck all the way to the back. We've got our first look at the dorsal fins here, and I quite like the detail on them. The detail and the paint, it's looking rather nice, I feel, and yet some of them look a little on the fuddy side, but once we get into the tail and the shading dissipates, it starts getting a little meh. But even in all of this looking meh, at least Super7 were kind enough to paint them all the way to the tip of the tail, including the very tip of the tail over here. Thank you, Super7. I do so appreciate that. The toes and the claws as well are going to feature that exact same kind of paint, but with a little addition. There's a bit of a pinkish hue going on there at the root, even a little bit on the side over here. Yep, that'll be present on both sides. It'll be present on the claws, of course on both sides. Now, save for this almost looking like a gas station toy you would pick up at 3 a.m. when you wouldn't shut up and your parents wanted you to. I will say that the detail is rather nice, and I cannot deny that. We've got bumps, we've got grooves, we've got the typical Godzilla skin detail going on. We've got the tried titty going on over here, all of the fantastic details, bumps and grooves from the crotch to the thighs to the shins to the feet. It's 100% Godzilla. And thankfully, that will be present throughout the entirety of the figure, making even its glossy cheapness kind of shine, no pun intended. I still just feel mostly the same. A little let down and kinda tired. Now thankfully Godzilla was outfitted with some rather lovely accessories, the first being the better head. The eyes look like they're pointed straighter, the teeth, yes, still look like scramby eggs, but I feel like the open mouth just does them a lot more justice. We've got a nice plumpy red tongue inside of his mouth, some decent details on the roof of the mouth, and basically just everything that's on the closed mouth head, just better in every single way, shape, or form. So I'm just going to behead and neck Goji, I guess. Yeah, that happens ever so often, but it's an easy fix. You just plop it right back on the ball joint. Oh shit, the cock ring came out. But yeah, this is a fixed ball joint, nothing too crazy in there, just there you go, and then there you go. I think he looks 1,000 times better with that head on. Now, let's take a look at the hands. Two closed punching fists, which are going to be outfitted with the same amount of paint and detail as the base figure. Still gonna get that creamy pink at the root of each of the claws. Same thing for these scrunched up hands. I kind of call them ninjutsu hands because it looks like Godzilla's trying to summon a jutsu of some kind. A little fuddy on some of the claws, but nothing too bad. I think. And then we've got the special Fap hand, complete with own a hole, with a nice neon mintish green in the center and a hole. We all know the story behind this. Godzilla's hand got impaled by a tendril from Biollante. Gonna get the same kind of paint work going on the claws, and that's pretty much it. Applying the hands is rather simple, and I will give this to Super 7. Taking the hands off and putting another pair on is quite easy, and I'm glad these fingers are, you know, squishy. I feel like the wrist would break during a fall before the fingers, and that's fine. Same thing for the other hand over here. Just pull and push. Godzilla's summoning his chakras through his own whole hand. Godzilla has one more accessory, and it's a scarf of vinage left over by Biollante. It fits over his neck. All you have to do is rip his head off and place it over the neck. Easy as 1, 2, 3, and then 4. And boom! Godzilla's all bundled up for those cold months. What a sweet half-sister Biollante is. She made him a scarf. Practically gave her own flesh and blood for it. And that's pretty much it for paint and detail on Godzilla, and I am so critically torn on whether I like or don't like these figures that I've abandoned my rating system for this review. Honestly, it feels like you were paying more for size than anything else, but anyway. Articulation. We've got a ball joint at the head. Godzilla can look up about that far, not too far, and he can look down rather far. Thank you very much, Mr. Ball Joint. And then at the neck, as you saw prior, it also has a ball joint. It can't really look down all that far, but with the help of the ball joint in the head, you can kind of get the pose going, and it can't really look that far up either. So, yeah, it is what it is. At the shoulder blades over here, the arms can move up about that far. They can swivel all the way around. At the bicep over here, they can also swivel all the way around. At the elbow over here, we can bend out, and we can bend back in like so, and then we can swivel. At the hand, we can also swivel, and we can bend in and out at the wrist. Basic, but effective, sure. At the torso, Godzilla can swivel all the way around. Don't think there's an ab crunch, but here you go. Here's me trying to do an ab crunch, and it's not happening because there is none. At the thighs over here, we can kick about that far. That's as far as I'm willing to push these things because I feel like this thing's going to snap. We can, of course, kick back a little bit. That's as far as I'm willing to take it. We will get a lovely bend at the knee and a bend out at the knee. And Hot Diggity Dog will get a nice swivel at the knee as well. At the toes over here, we can point up that far and I believe down that far. We're also going to get a pretty nice pivot out of these feet. Not bad. And now for the tail. The tail is multi-segmented. I mean, you really wouldn't know that, how little fucking movement it has. So I'm just going to take the tail off. It's so much easier. So yeah, there are ball joints in this tail. It's just fairly limited to the point where it almost feels entirely fucking pointless. It's like I'd try a little bit harder to get it into a curved pose, but it also feels like it's going to break. And you can kind of see why that is. It almost feels like they didn't give the ball joints enough room to really, like, get into a pose, let alone hold one. So again, the presence of these ball joints, they just feel kind of pointless. I don't know how else to properly describe this. It feels kind of brittle. I'm a little scared because I don't want to break an $85 figure on camera, or at all for that matter. Yeah, that's the tail. And this section over here almost feels like it's not supposed to move, even though it kind of is. And it's mostly, let's see. Yeah, it's mostly this section here to the tip of the tail that feels like it has movement that's not going to break it. Meanwhile, here it's somewhat brickish. And as you can see, this is another fixed joint over here. Just shove it in, and there we go. You can get the tail to lie mostly flat, as you can see. I just wish getting it into an upward pose didn't just immediately lead to it doing that and kind of stopping halfway. Yeah, there ain't gonna be any S-curves going on with a tail like this. And yeah, I kind of wish they went with a bendy wire or just did something else entirely. Honestly, a solid piece of vinyl with 2 breaks in it to swivel left or right would have been better than this. So I guess that's kind of it for Godzilla. I mean, I like things about it. It's just upon getting this thing out of the box, I felt let down by its appearance, and I kind of just felt let down by the articulation. I kind of just wish it was a little bit better. And again, for $85, I mean, it's a bigger figure, yeah, and even though he's glossy, I do like the paint and such, but again, this just doesn't feel worth it. Even beyond its shiny, cheapish looking nature, it just feels like a letdown. And believe me, I don't take pride in saying that either. But that's it for Godzilla. Let's see how Biollante fared, huh? So I will say up front that I think Roseform Biollante is definitely the better figure of the two. And even though she lacks in some areas, I mean, it's definitely better what Bandai's probably going to give us by the end of the year. Biollante's stumpy lower half is mostly going to be this dark foresty green, and with it being so shiny, a lot like Godzilla, it does kind of help the details pop out a little bit. It's just as we travel upwards on the figure and we see these beautiful neon green leaves, it really kind of just makes me wish more of that green paint was kind of like over here. Maybe not as vibrant, but I don't know, a little bit of something else. Again, the details are there, the shiny nature, the darker paint, it really does allow things to breathe and be right up front and in the action. And Biollante's little brain nucleus womb over here is actually a little on the squishy side, which I wasn't expecting. It's orange and it kind of looks like some of the paint came off of it. Interesting. $85. So now let's move on over to Biollante's head. It looks like John Carpenter's The Thing became a paleobotanist because, dear God. So the teeth are a little on the gaudy side. I'm not really put off by that because the red surrounded by the different shades of green on the leaves, I think it just looks really good. I know I've been somewhat of a negative Nancy throughout this review so far, but again, I definitely think Roseform Biollante is the better figure of the two. And when it comes to the head, mouth thing, I definitely think this figure shines its brightest. In fact, if I just deflower her real quick, on the back of the head you can see more of what I was talking about, and again, I feel like a little bit more of this really could have been used on the remainder of the figure. Granted, I don't know how the suit prop puppet looked behind the scenes or anything, but screw accuracy. Just would have been nicer to look at. That being said, look at the tops of these leaves. Oh my god, I love that green. And this is a bit of an articulation spoiler, but I gotta show it off. These leaves are articulated, yes. And when you articulate them, you can see all the cool little details on the underside, coupled with paint. This one's kind of articulated too, but it's a bit of a flutter-dutter, so I just take it out and look at it. There it is. There you go. See, it's kind of on a slant or something over here, and this doesn't like to move, and I'm afraid I'm going to break it. So I'm just going to put that back in there and swivel it up and down as I have. And I guess since I'm already talking about it, yeah, this leaf is kind of fixed. It's not articulated at all, so fold that down, fold that down. Now we can get our head back on. There we go. And there we are, the alternate head with the open mouth. This just upscales the creepy factor by a significant margin. I hate that on the teeth, but it does look cool, and this is my preferred head for old Rosy Biollante over here. Now let's take a look at the Venus flytrap tendrils over here. I'm just going to take them off. They're a lot easier to talk about when they're off of the figure, and the details are nice. The paint on the teeth is okay. I like how they look, sure. The inside of the mouth, both on the roof of the mouth and on the floor of the mouth, are going to be detailed, and since I already talked about articulation, yes, these can close, they can open. This is on a ball joint, so you can make the bottom jaw all slack, looking like she just got cartoonishly punched in the face. You're going to have a swivel over here, and there is going to be a little hinge over here, which will also allow it to swivel once it's plugged in. Now, I'm not going to put the other one back on because I'm going to showcase the damaged tendril head over here. This does connect, but they don't really stay together. Oh, wow, look at that. All right, oh, okay, there we go. So this is what it's going to look like on the damaged tendril. This is the part that's actually going to plug into the tendril, and this is the part that's going to lay at Biollante's stump-looking thing. And again, the paint on the teeth is all right. I can't really see inside the mouth, tell if it's actually painted. I think it is. But again, the detail is rather nice. This neon green for Biollante's blood looks really nice as well. A nice inclusion, I feel. Here's the other damaged tendril. This one doesn't stay together as well, but that's okay. That's what it's intended for. Paint on the teeth. Pretty good. Paint on the inside of the mouth, so that answers my question. And then we got some more lovely details, some neon green paint. It's going to sit at Biollante's stump, so it's going to at least look good doing that. And now we can apply the broken stump over here, and honestly, I think that kind of just pulls it all together. Just really, really nice. So yeah, I do wish Biollante was a little bit more colorful below the neck. But as far as that goes, and my complaint with the teeth on the open mouth, I think Biollante is definitely the one figure of the set worth getting. Worth $85 though. No. So now let's talk about the articulation I didn't talk about prior. So there will be a ball joint at Biollante's leaf bud thing over here. It can look up about that far, and then it can look down about that far. I'm being very gingerly with this because if you push it too far, it'll come right off. There is some movement at this ball joint as well, so it's not just a stiffened neck or anything like that. I mean, it ain't a plethora of ball joints, but it's something, you know? Why did I put the head back on? I know I already discussed this, but hinge and swivels all the way around, hinge and swivels all the way around. Nothing at this leaf as far as I can tell. And then this is the one with the fuddy fucking hinge, so it kind of just swivels and stuff. I guess since I'm here, there is going to be a swivel over here at the very top, which is honestly more than I was expecting, really. So yeah, there is that. Movement. Alright, Biollante, let's get your head back on. Nice. Oh, I didn't even notice that. A tendril fell off, but this is probably for the better. Every tendril is going to have a hinge at the very bottom, which will allow it to swivel, but the tendrils with the mouths at the end of them, they're actually going to have some extra hinges on them, so there are some more posability options to go with. And again, swivel, and then hinge, hinge, and then we got another swivel, and we got a hinge, and a ball joint at the mouth over here. And it does give Biollante a little more versatility than I was expecting. But as you can see, this fell off. And yes, sometimes the tendrils, the vines, whatever the hell you want to call them, fall off. But since it came off so easily, it kind of goes back in just as easily. And there she goes, back in action. The other more standard tendrils over here, they're just going to swivel at the base. Yep, there you go. The other tendrils will be able to move up and down somewhat all the way around, and they will be able to hinge in and out. It's just sometimes, yeah, they just like to come off. And it's not just that one. It can kind of be all of them at times. You really have to gauge how much you're going to hinge these forward or back, because if you go too far, they're just gonna pop out and it's gonna suck and they're gonna get loose, and then you gotta re-push them back in. It can be a bit of a chore. And you got the one back here, which is at a bit of an angle and does give me some trouble from time to time. You can actually see a bit of a stress mark right there. So, yeah, just be gentle and be kind, I guess. And then we have the tendril back here, which has the damaged little stalk right there. This one's going to have the extra hinges that I talked about prior, and those are going to move. And I do appreciate the attempt made at articulation for a monster that essentially just stood there and moaned, I guess. And that's it for Roseform Biollante. I'm glad I finally have a figure of Roseform Biollante. I have two final forms of her, so this just seems all the better. And yeah, sometimes with the tendrils with mouths, sometimes they just kind of fall, whether you're moving it or not. Fair warning. I might not be crazy about this one now, but I'm pretty sure when the limited movie monster series Roseform Biollante figure comes out, it's probably going to look like this. And that's going to make this look like a masterpiece. Paint and detail, articulation, size comparisons, yeah. Size-wise, these are some pretty beefy figures. Godzilla especially is going to be a shelf hog. That tail not being able to meet at least the side of Godzilla's body as far as I can see is definitely going to demand some deep shelving or a side view to that extent. So if you don't got the shelf space, I wouldn't recommend fully committing to this line. But it is nice to be getting some bigger sized Godzilla figures right now. I mean, with Bandai, we've pretty much just been sequestered into the 6-inch categories. Hiya Toys is giving us bigger Godzilla figures, and now Super 7 is giving us both smaller and bigger Godzilla figures, so I really can't be mad. Big Man Big G demands big boxes, big Blu-ray collections, and big figures. And big shelf space, which I am slowly running out of. God help me when they get the Shin Godzilla, I'm screwed. I really wanted to fall in love with these things. I really wanted to have this review done like 5 hours ago, but just seeing them for the first time, it didn't inspire any kind of over-the-top happiness. It was just kind of meh. And again, I'm very much aware that retro and having toys look a specific way is Super 7's thing, but these just came off a little lackluster, especially in comparison to the pictures that we were shown when these things were first announced, which apparently those were modeled renders. They weren't even physically there. And then when we saw the prototypes, they were a little bit more matte and solid, and I think I would have preferred that. That definitely would have covered the bumps in the road a little bit with these things, for me personally. And I don't know, I hope Destroya and Melt Goji kind of hit it off better for me. I mean, these things were delayed for, I don't even remember how long, and in that time, Hiya Toys came out and kind of knocked a lot of people's socks off, and I feel like Super 7 had a little bit more time to kind of iron out the kinks with some of these things, and I don't know. All I'm trying to say is, I'm a little let down. I'm not out, but if you like these things, more power to you. I'm going to end it off with that. I'm not super crazy about them. They really didn't quench my thirst like I thought they would. And if that was the intent, then these aren't for me. And they're definitely overpriced as shit. But if Super 7 can come back from this and not make the figures feel so boring, then hey, more power to them. Just how retro would you call these things? Because Trendmasters is retro. They were a lot more colorful than this. Anyway, that's it. Hope you all enjoyed. Patreon, social medias. Thank you so much for watching. I'm sorry this wasn't a blitheringly positive review. We'll see you next time. Peace.